Hello, lovely humans. Welcome to my channel. If you are new here, my name is Emily and I post a ton of bookish content on here. And if you are not new here, hello, welcome back. Happy to have you. So for today's video, I decided I wanted to do something a little bit more relaxed and comforting. And with that said, we're going to be doing the comfort book tag today. So I have actually done this recently on my book blog. If you want to maybe read how I feel about these books as opposed to hearing me kind of ramble on, then please feel free. I will link it down below for you guys if you want to read it. But this video is going to be all the same books, but just my opinions from the top of my head and why I chose them. So there are 10 different, I guess, prompts for this book tag, and I'm so excited. So I just want to dive right in. I will be reading a little bit off my phone just because I'm not exactly sure what each of the prompts exactly are. So I will read each of them, tell you my book pick, and that's about it. If you want, maybe go grab a nice cup of joe, go grab a tea, even a water, stay hydrated, friends. And that's what I'm doing. So if you're wondering why there's like this random line in my coffee, it's because I left it in the freezer too long and then I added in the milk. So we're dealing with this today. I actually haven't even tried this yet, so let's give it a try. Okay, surprisingly good. So I only have a few of these books physically right now, either because some books I read on my Kindle or other ones I'm actually lending to my friend Claudia right now. But with that said, the first book I actually do have in person. So the prompt for the first one is a book of steadfast comfort, always there for you and makes any day better. And while this book is definitely a newer book that I've read, I think it's just going to be one of my favorites of all time, and that is Delilah Green Doesn't Care. If you're not aware of what this book is about, it's essentially about this girl named Delilah who moves to the city to be a photographer, and she also wants to get away from her step family. In a way, it's like a loose retelling of Cinderella because her dad remarries and he passes away, and while she's growing up, she has to live with her step family who she doesn't connect with at all. So when she does move to the city, she doesn't really go back to her hometown, which is called Bright Falls. And then her stepsister Astrid is getting married and she asks Delilah to be her photographer. And it's really hard for her to say no because they're giving her like $15,000 or something to do it. So she ends up going back to her hometown, and honestly, anything that has to do with like a small town vibe is so comforting to me, but this one here just is a go-to. I don't know why, I just know I'm gonna be reading this again. But anyway, she does go back home and she ends up really hitting it off with one of Astrid's best friends, Claire. Claire is a single mom with a 11-year-old daughter and a confusing relationship with her dad, but they kind of have to keep it secret because obviously Delilah doesn't get along very well with her stepfamily, and yeah, it's a good time. There is some smut in here and I really liked it. This was my first queer romance. That could also be why it's comforting to me. I don't know why, but yes, this is definitely a very comforting book for me and I'm excited to read it again already, even though I read it like 2 months ago. The next prompt in this comfort tag is a book that reminds you of a loved one or a comforting book that was given to you or read aloud to you by someone dear. And this one's kind of funny. Honestly, growing up, I wasn't really much of a reader. I started reading about 2.5 years ago now, like consistently, and the only book I can think of that a loved one gave to me would either be Lord of the Rings, the trilogy, which I didn't even read, I just received it. A series I did read and was gifted to me was The Hunger Games, and that is just such a comforting book to me, specifically the first one, but I loved all of them so much. And I remember just like reading the first one and then going to see the movie with my friends and then reading the second one and going to see the movie. So the Hunger Games trilogy will always have a soft spot in my heart, and I don't know if I'll ever read it again, but I would recommend it to a lot of people. The next book prompt of this video is a book with particularly vivid prose or imagery, a story comforting in its richness, depth, and vibrance. And if you can't guess already, I'm gonna be saying The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue. I just read this book last month, and before I even finished it, I knew that this was gonna be that prompt because this book is relatively long. It's not that long. A lot of people say it is, maybe because it feels long with the slow burn that comes with it, but you can imagine just how rich and full of depth this book is, because if you're not aware, you follow this girl named Addie LaRue throughout centuries of her life because she ends up making a deal with a dark demon or god or something like that, and essentially she just really wants to live her life and be free. And so the dark god does that, but without telling her, he makes her live forever so she becomes immortal. But most people do not remember her, and by most I mean everyone except one. And the twist of the book is actually really good. There's so much detail and so many like almost little short stories of her life and like where it took her over the centuries, and I actually really enjoyed this book. I did rate it a 3 out of 5, I believe. I'll say all the ratings at the end of what I rated these books, but regardless of rating, this book definitely was full of character development and depth of like the relationships that she upholds and all that stuff. So I really like this book. I don't know what else to say. The next prompt of this book tag is a book that keeps you going or encourages you when things feel dark. So this is a book that I have given to Claudia to read, but that would be Reminders of Him by Colleen Hoover. Honestly, this book, like if I were in the situation of our main character, I would definitely feel like things are so dark. But essentially what the book is about, it's about a mother named Kenna who is in jail for something she did by mistake 5 years ago, and then she comes out of jail or prison and wants to rekindle like her relationship with her 4-year-old daughter, who now lives with her ex-boyfriend's family. And when she goes back to the hometown, they want nothing to do with her. She's terrified that everyone's gonna judge her for coming out of prison and returning, and the only person who kind of accepts her and is like that last string of hope to her daughter is this bar owner named Ledger, and it's a romance. They end up having, you know, a little good time, if you will, but once again they do have to keep it kind of secret. And Ledger is everything. He is so good to her daughter. He is so good to her and understanding her situation, even though he was so close to her ex-boyfriend. And honestly, like I said, this book just feels comforting to me because she's going back to this hometown. She wants to better herself and be better for her daughter, and obviously good things happen in the end, and she's in such a dark place, but in the end she comes out of it a much better person, feeling loved, and I don't know, that's just comforting to me. Is it not? Okay, the next prompt is a book that makes you laugh out loud or grin widely, coming to the rescue on gloomiest days. And the one book that I immediately thought of with this prompt, I do not have physically, but I read it on my Kindle, and that is The Plight Before Christmas by Kate Stewart. Absolutely adored this book. Yes, it's a holiday romance, but I honestly think you could read this at any point. Basically, we follow Whitney, and she did not get this promotion that she so rightfully deserved. Nothing is really going right in her life. She doesn't have a relationship. She's getting older, and she goes to her family cottage for Christmas, but her brother brings home a friend who ends up being her ex-boyfriend from 17 years ago. And obviously she's not very happy with her brother about this, but they get along for the sake of Christmas and for the sake of all of Whitney's siblings' kids, because there are a lot of kids in this book. The interactions with them are just so adorable and funny, and I don't really know how else to describe it. It's just a really comforting romance that takes place around Christmas, and there's lots of funny moments with the family and with the two of them. There's a lot of tension between the two of them because obviously things went wrong 17 years ago, and there's still like this sexual attraction between the two of them. But nonetheless, I have such a soft spot for any sort of book that is romance and has family within it, because obviously family means a lot to me, and just having the two combined is just so cute. The next prompt is, you've got your warm drink and a cozy blanket. What do you read when you're curled up in bed all day? And the first thing I thought of is, again, another book that I have lended Claudia, and that is November 9 by Colleen Hoover. The reason I thought about this book is because this is exactly what I did. I decided I wanted to read November 9 on November 9th wanted to read it all in one day, and I just laid in bed so comfortable with a hot chocolate, and it was a good time. So if you're not aware of what this story is about, which I feel like a lot of people are because Colleen Hoover is just exploded, but it is essentially about our two main characters, Fallon and Ben, I believe. And Fallon is at a diner with her dad, basically just talking and trying to catch up, but her dad starts to kind of slowly judge her for her decisions of moving soon and trying to make it big in a big city. And so Ben just like randomly comes over to their table and acts like her boyfriend to try and get her dad to see that like she's doing okay, she has a boyfriend, things are good. And essentially from there, they spend the entire day of November 9th together, and then she has to get on a flight to go to, I think it's New York City, to start her new life. But they decide after that, because they just had such a strong connection from day one, that they were not going to interact on any other day of the year. They're not going to text, follow each other on social media, call each other, nothing. They're just going to plan where they end up meeting on the exact same day every single year, and essentially date for one day every year. Reason being is because Fallon's mom told her that around the age 23, you kind of start to know what you want, and they're only at the age of like 19 or something right now, so they will do this for like 5 years or something like that. And while they plan on doing that until they're 23 or so, obviously shit hits the fan and secrets come out and all that stuff. But the relationship is so cute. The book's not that long either, which made it kind of nice to read in one day. I do, however, know that I am obsessed with Ben. I know a lot of people don't like Ben as a character, but I think he's definitely in my top 5 book boyfriends. So highly recommend November 9. Once again, I will let you guys know all of my ratings at the end. So for the next prompt, I kind of switched it a little bit because it says, a book that brings you solace no matter how many times you reread it. And I haven't actually reread any books, I don't think. I do, however, have one that I really want to reread soon, and it is by far one of my top 5 favorite books of all time. That is The One by John Mars. So this one is definitely different from the rest so far. It's a thriller. It has kind of like romance and sci-fi elements to it, and I do want to read this very soon. I'll probably end up reading it sometime this summer or maybe in the fall. But if you are not aware, this book follows 5 different timelines from 5 different relationships, and all of these relationships come to be because of this DNA test that you can take to essentially find your soulmate. And some of the people are already in past relationships, and essentially what it says at the end is, now 5 very different people have received the notification that they've been matched. They're each about to meet their one true love, but happily ever after isn't guaranteed for everyone, because even soulmates have secrets, and some are more shocking than others. So there are so many different characters in this book, and I think that's probably what drew me to love it so much, along with how short the chapters are. It was super easy to get through, but this is definitely one of my comfort books because if someone asks me to recommend something, I instantly think of this one, and it is one that I guarantee I will keep forever and reread probably every couple of years. The next prompt is a book that restores your faith in humanity, faith in life, and faith in yourself. A book that says it's going to be okay, the world is full of good things, and tomorrow will be better. I think this is my favorite prompt out of... I'm missing a book. Just 1 second. As I was saying, I think this is my favorite prompt out of the entire book tag because this book, while it's not like a favorite of mine, it does mean so much to me, and I don't think a lot of people know about it, so I really wanted to put it in here. I did a reading vlog on it like months and months ago, I think in the summer or something like that, and that is Suddenly Single by Carol Wire. This book is so good, you guys, and not enough people have talked about it or even know about it, I don't think. And it's funny because it was one of those books at Indigo that was like $6 or something. So obviously I picked it up, I read it, and I loved it. This book follows our main character named Chloe Piper. She was in a relationship, but she does just happen to find out that her boyfriend, or husband, I forget which one it is, but he is cheating on her, so they get a divorce or they break up or whatever it is, and she decides to move out into the country on her own with her dog. One important factor here is that she is clearly, I mean, she's writing on the cover. She is an author and she has this like book deadline coming up, so when she moves, she thinks, oh, okay, well, this peaceful new home that I'm living in Sunny Meadow Farms development will help her have the time to write as well as try and like focus on herself. And another really important part is what I resonate the most. Oh my god, I swear I can't talk, you guys. And another big part that I really resonate with is the fact that she has severe social anxiety disorder, and that's something that I struggle with too. I don't think it's as severe as what she has in this book, but it was something that really comforted me knowing that in this book there is a romance aspect to it, but for the most part she is trying to get out of her comfort zone. She becomes a part of this little like social group and does activities with them to try and like get herself out of her bubble. And I just adored that. I love that she was willing to put herself out there more and essentially make friends and not feel afraid to be herself around them. And I also did really like the romance in this book. It just wasn't as prominent as like I would have wanted. But regardless, this book I feel like just gave me more faith in myself to kind of like come out of my bubble, and I could not recommend this more. I'm pretty sure I rated this either a 3 or 4 star, but yeah, please go pick this up, because I think like out of all of these books, a lot of these are popular, but this one isn't, so I'm gonna recommend this one the most. And Carol Wire is such a sweetheart. I have talked to her on social media. She deserves all of the hype and all of the purchases of this book she can get. So yeah, you can find this on Amazon, Indigo, Barnes & Noble, all those things. So love this book. The second last prompt of this video is, just as it's lovely to be comforted by books, it can be lovely to pass the comfort along. Imagine you were putting together a cozy comfort basket for your neighbor, a friend, loved one, take your pick. And which books would you include? So I decided to just choose 2 for this prompt because I didn't want to go overboard. Obviously there are a lot of books that I could recommend to people, hence booktube and bookstagram and book talk. Yes, I made a book talk. I'll link it down below. I don't have anything uploaded yet, but just you wait, I'm sure I will at some point. So I chose kind of really polar opposite books for this tag. I wanted something a little bit more on the like sad side, but still really good, and then something more upbeat and funny. So for the more toned down book, if you will, I've chosen In 5 Years by Rebecca Searle. I really enjoyed this book. If you are not aware of what it's about, it is about a woman named Dani who has her entire life figured out. I'm pretty sure she's like a lawyer or something like that, and she's already engaged to this wonderful man. Everything seems to be working out so well for her, and then she goes to bed, wakes up one day, and suddenly she's in someone else's apartment with a different guy. He's trying to like kiss her and make her dinner and all these things, and she's just like, you're not my fiance. Like, what is going on? And essentially from there, she wakes up and she's back into reality with her actual fiance. But this book technically isn't a romance, so the ending to me was interesting. I wasn't the biggest fan of the ending, but we typically just follow Dani's life and her friend Bella's life, and this book is more of like a platonic romance, if that makes sense. Like, it's just about her and her best friend. They could not be more different from each other, and Bella is trying to teach her to live day by day and not expect everything to be planned out for you. And Bella and Dani are just like, they're polar opposites, but they're really good friends, and they're good for each other. And so I don't know, I really enjoyed this book. There are really sad aspects of it. I don't want to spoil anything, but essentially there is magical realism, some romance, but mostly a platonic relationship between 2 best friends, and it's just a really sweet story, and I think everyone needs to read it. It's very short, as you can see. I think it's like under 300 pages for sure. But yeah, this is the sad one for that prompt. And then for a more happy rom-com-esque, I decided to choose The Hating Game, because if you're not aware, this is the romance that got me into reading romance, and it is definitely more on the upbeat side. We follow Lucy and Joshua, and they're both working for this like publishing company. They do not get along whatsoever. Lucy is like this quirky, upbeat, happy, pushover girl, and Joshua is more strict, stern, and does everything by the book type of guy, so they do not get along very well. And then there's this promotion that they both are going up for, and it's like a fight to the death between these two in this book, but they have really sweet moments, and you can tell throughout it that they obviously do have feelings for each other. They're just trying to mask it for a while, and Joshua ends up being a lot softer on the inside than we think, and he invites Lucy to his brother's wedding because he just needs like support. So even though they hate each other, I think because they work so closely together, they just have this like bond and relationship that he can't really find with someone else. So there are a lot of really funny aspects in this book, but it's also super cute. There's a tiny bit of smut in here. It's not like that much, but nonetheless, I would recommend this to a lot of people. I actually do recommend this quite a bit at work, just because people will come in and be like, I'm looking for an enemies to lovers romance, and this is the first book that comes to mind. So those are the two books I would recommend to someone in like a little gift basket. We are finally on to the last prompt. So prompt number 10 is, though we'd like to stay curled up indoors with our books forever, we've got to venture into the world again sometime. A walk in the woods always helps me feel refreshed. Tell us about a book with beautiful nature writing, or a book that restores your peace. So this one I had a really hard time because I couldn't really think of a book that had a lot of nature writing that I've read, but the first one that did come to mind is not really about nature, and there's definitely not peace in it, but it's one of my all-time favorite books. And I do not have the physical copy, but I read it on my Kindle, and that is Flock by Kate Stewart. So the reason I thought of this book, I mean, clearly you can tell by the cover, there is like a forest on it. And in this story, I've talked about it a million times, so I'm definitely gonna keep it short. But in the story, we follow Cecilia. She moves to her dad's in a small town, and she works for him in order to gain this inheritance that he has for her. So she goes there, and when she starts work, she actually meets her supervisor, Sean, who is an attractive male, and they end up hitting it off. And the reason it made me just think of nature is because Sean and Cecilia definitely went on hikes a lot, and they would go out into like the forest and just like have fun. There's also like a really smutty scene on a lake that, if you know, you know, and reminded me of nature because they read in the book and they're outside quite a bit. But that's the last prompt. Alright you guys, those were all the prompts for the video, and now I'm just gonna let you guys know what I rated all these books so you know. But like I said, regardless of whether I rated these books like a 2 out of 5 or a 5 out of 5, all of them still brought me the type of comfort that was mentioned. So I will start with the lowest rated and go all the way up. So Hunger Games, obviously I didn't actually rate it when I was younger because I wasn't that type of reader. If I had to rate it, I would probably say it was like a 3.5 or so right now. The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue was also a 3.5 out of 5. Once again, In 5 Years was also a 3.5 out of 5. And now we're gonna get into our 4 stars, which were Suddenly Single, The Plight Before Christmas, and The Hating Game. So all of those were 4 out of 5s for me. And then the rest being November 9, The One, Reminders of Him, Flock, and Delilah Green Doesn't Care were all 5 stars. So those are my ratings, and those are my recommendations for this comfort book tag. I hope you guys enjoyed, and I hope you guys pick up some of these, especially The One, Delilah Green Doesn't Care, and Suddenly Single, because they're all so good, and I just think they deserve all the love that they can get. So thank you so much for watching this video and for listening to all of my comfort books while I explain them to you guys. Please be sure to like this video if you enjoyed it. Do not forget to subscribe down below if you want to see more bookish content from me, or anything from me for that matter. That's it for this video. Once again, thank you so much, and I will see you guys in the next one. Bye!